If World War III began today, what would you do? Not tomorrow, not in a few hours. Today, in the exact moment sirens begin to scream through your city and your phone vibrates with an emergency alert telling you to shelter immediately. Would you freeze? Would you pray? Would you run? Or would you simply stand at your window watching the world you knew disappear in the first 60 minutes of a global nuclear conflict? The question matters more than most people want to admit, because experts agree that if a global conflict breaks out between the world's major superpowers, America, Russia, China, North Korea, and their allies, the first hour decides the fate of the planet. Not the first day, not the first week, the first hour. That first hour determines who lives, who dies, which nations collapse, which cities burn, which governments fall, and which citizens find themselves trapped in the chaos of nuclear fallout, electromagnetic pulses, cyber warfare, long-range missile strikes, air raid bombardments, and the total breakdown of global communication. It is the moment the world's most advanced military technology moves from silent readiness into deadly motion. And in that hour, the world will witness the fastest destruction in human history. But before you can understand what will happen in that hour, you must first imagine where you would be when the alarms go off. Because no matter what country you are watching from, America, China, Russia, Germany, France, Japan, Korea, India, the United Kingdom, your life will change instantly. And while this video explores the unfolding of that first hour minute by minute, it also shows you what your survival chances look like and what people living in major cities might need to do to stay alive. So before we continue, let me know in the comments, what country are you watching from? Because your experience of World War III will depend heavily on where you live. The clock begins at 12 September, a moment that on the surface, people commuting, kids in school, offices buzzing, markets opening, news channels reporting the day's events. But behind the scenes, all nuclear powers have been on high alert for days. Military satellites track unusual troop movements. Intelligence agencies exchange urgent coded messages. Naval fleets reposition in contested waters. And hackers, unseen and untraceable, create silent holes in global communication networks, waiting for the order to strike. And then, without warning, the message that no world leader wants to receive flashes across multiple encrypted devices simultaneously. Hostilities initiated. A strike has been detected, and no one knows yet who launched first, but retaliation protocols activate instantly. In the United States, the Pentagon goes into immediate response condition. The skies above Washington, D.C., New York, Los Angeles, and dozens of other strategic sites fill with rapid deployment aircraft. Nuclear submarines hidden beneath the Pacific and Atlantic come online. The National Command Authority scrambles. Red lights begin flashing in underground bunkers as the U.S. Strategic Command prepares for the possibility of nuclear retaliation. In Russia, alarms thunder through military bases stretching from Kaliningrad to Vladivostok. The Kremlin orders full readiness. Intercontinental ballistic missiles are placed in launch sequence. Strategic bombers taxi across icy runways near the Arctic Circle. Russian satellite systems track every American move, expecting a counterstrike. In China, the Central Military Commission activates its massive anti-access missile systems. Thousands of long-range weapons are pointed at U.S. bases in the Pacific. Military drones rise like a swarm of metallic insects. Chinese cyber units initiate coordinated offensives targeting American communications, banking systems, and critical infrastructure. In North Korea, missile launchers roll onto coastal cliffs. Troops rush to hardened shelters. Artillery units along the DMZ tighten their formation. In Europe, NATO intelligence officers race through corridors in Brussels, shouting orders as encrypted communications link Germany, France, the UK, Poland, Italy, and other member nations into one unified military network. Air Force jets roar off runways in Germany and France, scrambling toward the Baltic and Eastern European skies. Japan activates its ballistic missile defense system. Sirens scream across Tokyo and Osaka, urging civilians to take cover. South Korea triggers its national alert, preparing for potential bombardment from the north. Within the first 10 seconds of the war, the world has already changed. And you? You would probably still be confused, looking at your phone, trying to understand whether the alert is real or a mistake. In modern warfare, confusion is deadly, and in nuclear warfare, confusion is guaranteed. The first minute begins not with explosions, but with silence, the silence of global signal disruption. An electromagnetic pulse, likely triggered by a high-altitude detonation, takes down parts of the electrical grid in multiple regions. Phones die, cars stall, lights flicker. Internet access collapses in several major cities. That is the first strategic move of any nuclear-ready nation: blind the enemy. and suddenly, millions of people around the world are thrown into darkness. By minute 5, the skies over several military bases turn black with the smoke of missile trails. Hypersonic weapons, traveling faster than Mach 5, streak across the atmosphere, targeting enemy radar and early warning systems. These weapons move so fast that even state-of-the-art defense networks struggle to intercept them. In the United States, missile defense crews watch glowing dots streak across their screens. They have seconds to decide whether they are witnessing a false alarm, an intentional provocation, or the beginning of the end. And those seconds matter, because the moment they confirm the threat, retaliation becomes almost unavoidable. In Europe, the fear spreads like lightning. Germany activates its air raid sirens for the first time since the Cold War. France places its nuclear forces on full alert. Poland braces for an incoming wave of Russian aggression. Civilians begin running toward underground train stations for shelter. News channels broadcast live footage of jets filling the skies. Meanwhile, Russian submarines quietly adjust their coordinates in the Arctic and North Atlantic, preparing for a devastating second strike capability. Their goal: remain invisible long enough to unleash nuclear retaliation if Russia is hit first. In China, air defense systems detect unusual American movements in the Pacific. Tension rises. A single misinterpretation could lead to a global nuclear exchange. At minute 15, the first explosion occurs, but not a nuclear one. A conventional missile slams into a military base near a disputed border, taking out radar towers and communication lines. Satellite images show smoke rising into the sky. The world's social media erupts. Hashtags explode. Panic rises. Every citizen in every country tries to understand what is happening. By minute 20, the first major cyber attack hits the global banking network. ATMs stop working in several countries. Digital payments fail. Stock markets freeze. Panic spreads as people realize that financial systems can collapse even without a single nuclear detonation. Minute 25. U.S. fighter jets fly dangerously close to Russian airspace. Russian jets respond. A dogfight nearly begins as one pilot locks onto another. A single missile could trigger full nuclear retaliation. Minute 30. China launches a barrage of long-range ballistic missiles into the South China Sea to warn U.S. aircraft carriers. North Korea fires short-range missiles toward the ocean to signal its involvement. Japan's missile defense systems intercept several incoming threats. Minute 35. People around the world begin flooding supermarkets. Shelves empty within minutes. Bottled water vanishes first, then canned food, generators, and batteries. Traffic jams shut down highways as millions attempt to flee major cities. Minute 40. The first nuclear-capable missiles are armed. Not launched. Armed. They glow red on satellite tracking systems. The world watches in horror. Minute 45. Global leaders try to negotiate through emergency channels, but communication networks are failing. Messages arrive delayed or incomplete. Orders get lost. Tension spirals. Minute 50. A misinterpreted radar signal appears over Eastern Europe. NATO believes it is a nuclear launch. They prepare a counterstrike. For 3 minutes, the world balances on the edge of total annihilation. Minute 53. The radar glitch is corrected. It was not a nuclear launch. It was debris from a destroyed satellite. A nuclear exchange is avoided, for now. Minute 55. Russian military units begin mobilizing near European borders. NATO prepares to respond. Civilians across Germany, France, and Poland rush for shelters. Explosions echo near the Baltic Sea. Minute 58. In the United States, millions stare at emergency broadcasts urging civilians to shelter in place. Highways freeze. Parents desperately try to reach their children. Churches fill with people praying. Minute 59. China detects aggressive American naval movements. They prepare their own counterstrike. Troops mobilize across the southern coast. Minute 60. 1 full hour has passed. 1 hour of confusion, chaos, cyber warfare, missile strikes, false alarms, and nuclear threats. 1 hour that feels like a lifetime. And you, wherever you are, realize that survival in World War III is not just about weapons. It's about information, location, shelter, and timing. It's about staying calm when the world falls apart. It's about making decisions that can save your life. Before we move on, tell me in the comments, which country are you watching from? I'm genuinely curious how global this audience is, because your location will shape your experience of the next terrifying phase of this war. The second hour of World War III begins not with explosions, but with an eerie, suffocating quiet. A quiet so unnerving that millions mistake it for safety. But in reality, it is the silence of militaries recalibrating, repositioning, and preparing for the unthinkable. A full-scale escalation that could involve nuclear warheads, electromagnetic pulses, long-range ballistic missiles, stealth bombers, underwater drones, and space-based weaponry. The world enters a phase that military strategists call the dead zone, a short moment between initial engagement and global retaliation. a moment where the outcome could still be reversed or sealed forever. Around the world, fear takes different forms. In America, millions huddle around radios, emergency broadcasts, or battery-powered televisions as news anchors tremble through updates. Parents pull their kids into basements. Some people pray. Others pack bags, ration food, fill bathtubs with water, and push furniture against windows. Survival instincts take over. But confusion remains the real enemy. In Europe, especially Germany, France, Poland, and the United Kingdom, people crowd into underground stations, metro tunnels, and Cold War-era bunkers once thought obsolete. Mothers hold children tightly. Elderly couples cling to each other. Many whisper the same question: is this really happening? In Russia, citizens watch the president address the nation with steely resolve, announcing that the motherland is prepared for any escalation. Russian strategic bombers stand ready. Missile crews sit in silos deep underground, waiting for orders. In China, emergency broadcasts tell civilians to prepare for extended outages. Cities go into blackout mode to avoid becoming visible targets. Factories shut down. Military bases glow with activity. In Japan and South Korea, sirens continue to wail. Every minute feels like the one before impact. People pack evacuation centers. Soldiers take defensive positions. But the truth is this: the next phase of the war will not begin with a nuclear blast. It will begin with a war in space. At minute 61, U.S. Space Command detects multiple unidentified objects rising from Chinese and Russian launch sites. Not missiles, satellite hunters. Specialized weapons designed to blind global positioning systems, disable communication satellites, or even destroy them. If these weapons succeed, entire continents could go digitally dark. The U.S. responds by activating its own space-based defenses. Invisible lasers and counterjamming systems come online. Bursts of static ripple through Earth's upper atmosphere as signals crash into each other. Within 5 minutes, GPS networks in parts of Asia and Europe flicker. Planes are forced to rely on manual navigation. Cargo ships drift off course. Some cities lose access to online banking. Stock markets struggle to reopen. Algorithms fail. Automated systems collapse. The modern world begins to tear at its seams. Minute 70. Russian submarines reposition beneath Arctic ice sheets, attempting to gain first strike advantage if nuclear war breaks out. American nuclear submarines respond, mirroring every movement. The ocean becomes a graveyard of silent steel monsters, each capable of destroying entire nations within minutes. Minute 73. A cyber attack on France shuts down electricity across multiple regions. Hospitals switch to backup generators. Traffic lights stop working. The Eiffel Tower goes dark. Minute 75. China launches a second wave of cyber offensives targeting the U.S. power grid. Engineers work frantically to isolate the intrusion. A major eastern city comes close to blackout before the attack is neutralized. Minute 78. A barrage of artillery fire erupts along the border between North and South Korea. While not yet nuclear, the intensity signals that both Koreas may become one of the first ground battle zones of World War III. Minute 80. Dozens of jets clash in the skies above the Baltic Sea. NATO planes intercept Russian fighters. A missile locks on. A warning tone blares inside a pilot's cockpit. For 3 agonizing seconds, the world braces for disaster. But the missile loses lock and veers off course. The pilot breathes heavily. A single confirmed kill could have triggered a nuclear response. Minute 85. A classified meeting takes place in an underground NATO facility. Leaders discuss the unthinkable, authorizing a preemptive strike. The room trembles with tension. No one wants to be responsible for ending civilization, but no one wants to be responsible for losing their nation either. Minute 90. In the United States, a false rumor spreads through social media claiming a nuclear missile is inbound. Panic erupts. People abandon cars and run through streets screaming. Police try to calm crowds, but fear moves faster than truth. Minute 93. China, fearing an American surprise attack, positions ballistic missile units along its eastern coast. Meanwhile, the U.S. activates missile defense systems in Guam, Hawaii, and California. Minute 95. A nuclear-capable bomber disappears from radar over the Pacific. Military officials from 3 countries simultaneously panic. Was it shot down? Did it go rogue? Did it malfunction? No one knows, and uncertainty is dangerous. Minute 98. India and Pakistan, long-standing rivals, place troops on high alert. Their involvement could ignite a secondary theater of global conflict. Leaders urge restraint, but tensions rise. Minute 100. A Russian cyber unit successfully breaches a European military network. For a moment, just a moment, Russia gains access to sensitive NATO information. The data is quickly secured, but the damage is done. Trust erodes even further. Minute 105. A missile detonates near a U.S. military ship in the South China Sea. It does not hit the target, but the message is clear. Escalation is now unavoidable. Minute 110. The United Kingdom deploys its nuclear submarines from Scottish waters. Civilians spot them and panic floods social media. Why are the nukes moving becomes the most asked question in the country. Minute 115. A powerful EMP, origin unknown, strikes a major city in Eastern Europe. Lights explode. Cars die. The entire grid collapses. People stare at dead screens, realizing their technology has become useless. Minute 120. 2 hours have now passed, and the world faces its most dangerous moment. At this point, world leaders begin to consider something they have avoided for decades: limited nuclear engagement, a horrifying term that attempts to make the unthinkable sound manageable. Military strategists claim that small tactical nuclear weapons, those designed for battlefield use rather than city destruction, might be used to gain advantage. The world edges dangerously close to the line. Civilians everywhere begin preparing for the worst. Some gather in basements, sealing windows with plastic sheets to protect against fallout. Others dig improvised shelters. Some flee cities, others stay behind. Many try to call loved ones, but networks fail. And somewhere in that chaos, you are thinking about your next move. Where would you go? What would you do? Who would you try to reach first? These are not hypothetical questions anymore. They are real. They are immediate. They are questions of survival. Minute 125. Russia fires several warning missiles into uninhabited Arctic territory, an unmistakable signal that they are prepared for nuclear escalation if provoked. Minute 130. NATO responds by repositioning nuclear assets across Europe. Strategic bombers take flight, nuclear silos activate, command centers go deeper underground. Minute 135. China deploys its most advanced hypersonic glide vehicles. They move so fast that no nation can intercept them reliably. Minute 140. A miscommunication between two rival warships nearly ends in a missile exchange. Alarms blare, officers shout, fingers hover over triggers. A single wrong word, a single misinterpreted radar echo could end millions of lives. Minute 143. A terrifying realization spreads. Humanity is relying on fragile communication systems to prevent total annihilation. Minute 150. As explosions echo across disputed regions, a sudden message breaks through the chaos. Multiple nations request an immediate emergency ceasefire meeting. The world holds its breath. Will they agree to talk, or will pride, fear, and anger push the conflict past the point of return? Minute 155. A fleet of global leaders, diplomats, and military advisors rushes into secure communication tunnels, trying to prevent the next move from becoming humanity's last. Minute 158. A Russian satellite malfunctions and sends a false launch alert. Russian commanders panic. American systems detect unusual movement. China prepares its own strategic response. For 30 terrifying seconds, humanity hovers above extinction. And then, confirmation, false alarm. Another nuclear exchange narrowly avoided. Minute 160, 2 hours and 40 minutes into World War III, and it is clear that the next few hours could determine whether the conflict escalates into total nuclear war or shifts toward uneasy negotiation. At this point, millions around the world understand one thing. War in the 21st century is no longer fought only on battlefields. It is fought in cyberspace, in orbit, underwater, in the skies, and inside every smartphone, every home, every city. The world is a battlefield now. And as the world braces for the next stage, whether negotiation or destruction, one truth becomes painfully clear. No one is safe. No nation is untouchable. No civilian is far enough from danger. This is the reality of the first hours of World War III. Before I conclude, let me ask you this. Which country are you watching from? And what would your first move be if this conflict began today? Your answers might help others think about their own survival strategy. And if you found this eye-opening, terrifying, or educational in any way, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement tells the algorithm that this is content worth spreading. And trust me, more people need to understand how quickly our modern world can fall apart. Stay alert, stay prepared, and stay aware. Because in a world on the brink, information is survival.